Mabrika, peace, my people. Well, I'm laying back because I'm sun gazing. I got my window right here, and I'm watching the sun um, going down at a sunset. This what time is this? 8:10. I've been doing this since 8 o'clock. But um, but let me tell you something though. It's better when you catch it going up. You know, the sun gaze, the first at sunrise. I like to catch it on the both sunrise and sunset. You know, so I'm sitting here watching the sun, chilling back, and you know, thinking about things. I went for the tax things over here, but my taxes all screwed up, man. I don't know. I need to really find a way of handling this, you know. So anyway, but that's my personal business. I'm getting it done, you know. And what I learned, what I experienced from that, I'll pass it on to everyone else. Anyway, because like us, you know, this bureaucracy, you know, like I said, I'm so invested in that sunken place right now. It's got us in that sunken place, and a lot of times, you know, this is part of it. Is you know the government governs your mind and keeps you complicit, keeps you in that sunken place, and this is part of politics. You know, the bureaucracy, the government, all that is part of politics. You know, we're calling the politics, the science of winning control of the government. And once they win control of the government, they set their statutes, you know, because their agendas, their statutes, you know, that big push for things to become law of the land, or not law of the land, actually statutes and policies, because there's no law. You know, there's only natural law. Everything else are just um, policies and statutes. That's all they really are. If you really delve into the definition and the meaning of it, you know what I'm saying, and see how this bureaucracy operates. You know, it's no big deal. You know, people study that. You know what I'm saying. So you know, we are always we're always every day is a day of what they say in life. You have to struggle. You have to get out of sunken place. You have to survive. You have to protect yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's that's what life is all about. You know what I'm saying? On this earth, you know, we come in struggling to breathe through when we come out of our mother's womb to try to get that breath, that etheric, that personality and character that's in nature's personality and character. The nature's a being, you know, to say earth is a being, the sun is a being, you know, these are entities, and these are entities that are created, and the creation is a creator, you know, it's the creation within itself engulf the creator, you know what I'm saying, it becomes the creator, the creation engulfs it, you know what I'm saying. And remember dimension, the expansion is part of all those dimensions. They use the light from the sun, the light frequencies, that dimension. They use the sound frequencies, that from the bees and the birds, you know, on the plants, the fruits, plants, there are insects that frequencies that help nature, part of nature, grow. Deep science. There's some deep science in that, bro. Deep science. And that's what I want everybody to, we're going to discuss this stuff, you know what I'm saying? And stuff that we read, we comprehend it, we reason it out, we do the whole deduction, inductive reasoning within our minds logically. We don't look at it linear, we look at it circular, which is reason. We reason it out. And we use the skills of recognizing logical fallacies. You know what I'm saying? Also prepositions and recognizing trigger words and recognizing linguistics. You know, it's not really a lot. It's not really a lot. It's your personal your experience. And that's important. And keeping it grounded experiences because I could tell you some experience that I had on a mental level, experiencing dreams and astral projections. But those who haven't experienced won't understand it, or they don't remember it because they have forgotten it. What I'm saying? That's why in the Quran there's a surah, a chapter, which is El Nas, which is the forgetful ones. They're forgetting their skills. They're forgetting the other part of their creation, which is the etheric, your light body. We have a light body, and then science has proven that through Kalian photography, when they take pictures, we have a light body. We have a frequency body too with sonograms. You can see, with the sonogram reveals that you have a light body by certain X-ray reveals that. So this body, I mean, you can have a amputated limb and still have the body, the etheric body, can still be intact, and that is because that is the blueprint. That is your blueprint. That's what speaks about when we spoke about in Genesis, when it was speaking about this nature forming itself and creating a blueprint in the etheric realm, you know? And then when the first sun that was in this galaxy was much bigger than the sun we see now. It was called Solar, I believe. Solar. It was a bigger sun. And when that divided itself, because you see, the sun is an entity, also a being, and this is the second generation of the sun. So the sun birthed another sun, and on and on and on. This is nature. Study that part of science when it talks about the galaxy and the suns and how they birth each other. They birth each other. They're asexuals, but they birth each other. So this is the third generation sun that we're at right now. And this earth came out of one of the earlier suns, and it became like what you call a big rock, a meteor. This is a big blue planet, a rock. It's like a meteor. You know, that's what they say. We came out and we manifest, mimic the same thing. We came out of the sun, etheric body, into the earth. The earth became our mother. And in the abyss, in deep within the caverns of this earth, this bodies were created. The first bodies were created. The first flesh, carne, and these etheric being reincarnated. They incarnated, not reincarnated. They incarnated. They became carne, inside the carne, this light body, and started manipulating this body. That's why your light body is that body is a light that manipulates your physical body. Did I say that right? Yeah, your etheric body. And there's a cord that when this body gives out, that's cut, and your etheric body continue into the pool of ether, and it's like astral projection in another form, etheric form. You're living in an etheric reality. You know, so the keeping it biblical, because I'm getting a lot of people that, and I know a lot of people that I love and care for are so invested in the Bible. And it's time that I come out and I share with you what we study, you know, just to give you that perspective. And so remember, in the other podcast, we stated that we stated that Jesus, excuse me, y'all. I just got this thought that's from gazing at the sun for so long. They're just getting all these different thoughts and deep thought. So where was I? Remember we discussed in the earlier podcast that when you read the Bible, the scripture, it is a script. There's characters in the script. Read it. There's characters. There's a character grid, right? There also are plots. When you go on, there's stories about, plots of stories, you know, battles and plot part, adventure. And it has a location, geographic location. So what I'm about to go into right now is dealing with that geographic area, which is the Tigris Euphrates, the Tigris River, the White and the Blue Nile, which is Gisang and Pisang. And that whole area from Ethiopia, Sudan, all the way into Arabia, Yemen, all the way to Turkey, Iraq, Iran, all in that area. That was the garden that it speaks about in the scriptures because it gives you that location. All you have to do is map it out. And when you do that, and you study about these archaeologists and Zechariah Sitchins, and you study about these men that went and unearthed these tablets, and then came along certain men that deciphered them, and translated them. Okay? But remember that word translate, put you in a trance. So you have to be very careful. But these ancient tablets told a narrative, a story. And that's why in the Bible it said, and God said this, and this, they always talk about it in the third person because they're narrating what a narrator narrated on these tablets. So they're telling the story. It's something they cut a lot of the stories out, and I'm gonna show you how. So we was talking about how the Elohim with the suffix IYM, meaning plural. So we were discussing that these Elohim on the etheric realm, right? And they incarnated into the bodies, the physical bodies that were here in the water planet, water beings. They're deep into the abyss, deep into the waters. They were water beings, okay? And some water beings came out to the surface because they seen the wind and they saw this other existence. All right. So they reached out. It's like a baby being born, and when the water breaks, they go through the tunnel. They break through those walls, the tunnel, the uterus, and all that, and they go where? And they come out and they breathe this air, right? Another existence for them. Same thing with the first beings on this planet, because this planet was a water planet. We're still in water. Well, the whole galaxy is a plasmic bubble, but then there is water on this planet. It's called the water planet. Tiamat. Earth is a water planet because it's mainly a water existence. Even our bodies. You know what I'm saying? And the way we're being birthed into this planet. But like I said, some beings went into the surface, reached out, went into the surface after being incarnated, reach out, part of them, and some went deeper into the cavern. They were in the dark in those caverns until the planet Nibiru crashed into because the Earth was a different type of Earth. It was bigger There was no Grand Canyon. It was a different existence of Earth. And when this Nibiru crashed in, bore and I believe, yeah, I got to go back into that story. That's in Luma Elish, when the planet Nibiru, a self-sustaining planet that had a different type of orbit, crashed into, I believe it was Earth, and cracked it, fragmented it. You see, Earth is not really round. Earth is it's like it's Swiss cheese. It's cut up. Swiss cheese. It's not round, but it has caverns in it. We all know that the caves and caverns within throughout the whole Earth. It's like an Earth. So they're gonna go deep into these caverns, and when that ship broke out, because it let out four other ships, one of those little shams started twirling out of control and bore a hole into the middle of the Earth, and it planted itself because it was a nuclear generated sham, a ship. And when it bore itself into the Earth, it lodged itself right in the center of it and became that central sun. But this is talking about billions of years before. And then the beings on that were already developing in the Earth didn't know what was going on. They were freaking out. They were freaking out once these shams started hitting Grand Canyon and started hitting places they were shipping, because there was already beings that was beginning to surface. And as these beings started to surface, the etheric beings are your extraterrestrial beings. You see, people have to put the puzzle together. When you go into India, they talk about their gods coming from another galaxy, Nirvana. They talk about Nirvana, another planet, galaxy, and they talk about these beings coming from there. I forgot what they call these beings, damn it. But anyway, in India, and then you got in Germany, you have the beings from Aldebaran, that constellation, that planet, that galaxy, right? Then you got beings from Sirius, you got beings from Antura, you got beings from Palladius, the Palladian beings, right? So you had all these beings. Even when you get down into Kemet, you have the Natharus, the Neteru. So you had all of these, even in Yoruba, which is a combination of both, they speaks about the higher beings also, which are the Orichas. And then you have the Native American, and that area was the Kachinas. So they talk about these beings. Every culture talk about these beings. And these were alien beings that had reached a level of knowing how to activate their light bodies and traveling through time and space, because they activated their light body, the Makarba, their light body, the Ethereal light, electromagnetic light. They're able to harness that, and so they became shams and ships, and they're able to travel and build themselves crafts and actually become the crafts. So they travel, and as they come to different geographic area, they incarnated, or they mixed in, or incarnated also mean they mixed in with the inhabitants of that geographic area. This is all mentioned in the Aluma Elish when they talk about in the particular area. I just gave an example of globally, but in that particular area was the Anunnakis. And the reason why the Anunnakis came down, they say, was to mine gold, because gold is a conductor, and they need it for the electromagnetic, for their ships also, and their planet and their ships. and gold was also a way to conduct their electromagnetic body so they can travel intergalactical. But the Anunnakis, there was some that stood here and wanted to stay here, got comfortable in that gold. And we'll go into that another time about how gold and people wear this gold and fascinated with gold, you know. And that all the way goes back into those stories of that area with the Anunnakis. And so the story is, let me introduce to you some scrolls that I was fortunate to read some of it, but I read a translation of it, not in its actual language. And that was the scrolls of Ibrahim, which is called the Suhuf, the Sahafin, so Suhuf. They're saying that those scrolls are lost, but we know that those scrolls were taken to Timbuktu. They're from there into the Cairo University of Cairo. They're keeping it very sacred and they're guarding those scrolls because those are the scrolls of Ibrahim. And remember, yeah, Abraham was from where? From Chaldea and Ur, from that area. Again, that locationality, that location of where the biblical stories are coming from, because narrative say he was from that area, from Chaldea, from the Babylonian Empire, Chaldea, and he crossed over. Is the reason why they call him a Hebrew. Now, Ibri was the name they were giving them. Ibrahim is a multitude, plural. You see how it's tricky, misleading when you mistranslate the scriptures, when you look into the Hebrew and you look into the word Ibrahim, you see the what? The suffix him. Wherever you see the suffix him in a name, means that it is a multitude of people. So yes, there was a lead, there was a leader or a higher, or one that sit in a higher seat within that Ibri culture or the Ibri tribe that came from Chaldea. And they were known as the Ibrahim. And then they went into where? Kemet, into the Sahara, into Kemet, into the deserts of Saudi Arabia. And these were a tribe of bearded, heavy bearded men, and they were shepherds. They have flocks of sheep and shepherds. You know, they were shepherds. That's the reason why you get the whole shepherd ideology of Jesus Christ, or shepherds are always Moses with the staff and taking care of the herds. And they always get this from this area is a lot of shepherds. They dealt with sheeps and with animals, some of them were farmers, but they were mainly more livestock was their currency, was their stock, was their currency. That's was their worth, was the stock that they had. If you read through the scriptures in that area, and you see how they traded and they grew in what? In stocks, in livestock of animals, cattle. The more cattle, the more livestock you had, the more riches you had, because that was the currency. So anyway, in that they had a document, a doctrine that they follow, a document. So one of the Ibris, which I forgot his name that he'll be known under, and in Sumerian culture, started to document stories from that area, from the Illumination, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Book of Etana, started to document, translate it into their language. Ibri language is more where you're going to get your Hebrew language, which is more Aramaic. They spoke Aramaic. and Nubic, you know. And so this document was what they call the pure pages. But also they say that there was a collection of other older scrolls that he added on to. And one of the scrolls were the scroll of Adam, or the Adamic people, or Zakar was his name. Zakar was an Adamic, ready, Rudy, earth per people that came out of the garden. And I will go over to that story sometime, or maybe later on, if I got enough time on this live stream. And so the point I'm making is that there is some scrolls and tells a story, or tells that's missing within the biblical text. They purposely, that's called misinformation, mislead you because they missing and they took it out. And so the reason why, so I'm going to give you one of those stories right here, very interesting, that was coming out of the Suhuf. And it was the story of the heavens, of how did these Anunnakis, why did they come down here and how did they wind up coming onto this earth, right? And subduing that whole area, in the Tigris Euphrates, in that area, and building those big those monuments. Okay, now these people, etheric beings, their ancestors were the etheric beings that came from other constellations. The Anunnaki from Anu was from, I forgot the constellation. It was Orion. I believe it was in Orion, because Anu was the highest seat. And then you had the Anakim, and then you had the Anunnaki, was the one that was able to incarnate in another avatar, in a physical avatar body. Those were your Anunnakis. Now, what happened first, according to the Suhuf, was there was a galactical confederation. There was a multitude, because you know that there's Anchurians that came down here, Adabarians, there was Kachinas. There were people from different constellations, and they had a confederation. It's sort of like treaties, because there was always battles and wars breaking out. And just like you got the Republican and the Democratic, right? The red ones and the blue ones, you also had that in the heavens, in the etheric realm, amongst these constellations. You had those of the red light, and you had those of the blue light. And then the one with the green light, which would be considered the Green Deal, which would be considered the one in the middle, okay, the independent one, those were the green lights. So what happened, out of the green light, they split it into the red and the blue, right? So you have beings that call, on the blue light, with the seraphim. The beings in the red light were called the cherubims. And then you had the ones, the green light, were, I forgot what they were called, the Allahumas. They were Elohim, but they were Allahumas, and they were the the Ilah, you know what I'm saying, that split up and became Elohims and Anunnaki, all these different type of classes of etheric beings. Now, there was a being, an entity that sat on that throne, which is the emerald stone, which is the green one. Okay, when you look at in Daniel, I forgot what verse, what chapter and verse, and talks about when he saw the throne, and he seen the one sitting in the throne, and you can never see him because he's on the veil. There's 7 veils in order to get to see his face. You know what I'm saying? That was the Mikael. The the one of them, one of that order from that order was the order of the green light was one of called Mikael. Mikael is the archangel. There are many other archangels, but there was one main archangel, and he was Mikael, was the teacher. And so Mikael and the green light, they when the cherubims and the seraphims, when the blue light or the green ones, when we were going to say the seraphim and the cherubims, when they started to gain more teachings and wanted to know more, they went to the green light. But what the sons of the green light were doing, indeed, this is all in the angelic, and this is all in the Suhuf. They were creating, they were not, yeah, well, you can say creating another being that was like a seraphim and a cherubim, because the seraphim had 100, they were created at 180 degree of agreeable nature. Now this deals a lot with character and personality. So you have one group that their character and personality, right, it's agreeable. The other group, the cherubims, the other group, they're all Elohims, right? They they're all Elos. I mean, they all Elo beings. On the cherubim side, they were disagreeable beings. So there was 180 degrees of disagreeable. In other words, negating or a different personality and character. So you had one that was always agreeable, and you had one that was always disagreeable, negating. In other words, one that was always positive positioning itself, and the other one was always negation. You know what I'm saying? So the ones of the green light wanted to create another being that had what they call will. The cherubim and the seraphim had no understanding or no wisdom about what was will, because they were so invested at their way, their character, and their personality, that they had no idea of the other personality. They couldn't balance the both. But whereas the sons of the green light had it, and they wanted to create a teacher that was to teach them about each one of their natures. Now this is in the Suhuf. So when they started to teach, when the word got out there, oh, I forgot to tell you. I forgot to tell you that before all this happened, the reason why they decided to create this being to teach them the will was to stop, so they can understand each other, was to stop the battles they were having. Because there was a battle that they had. There was a battle in the heavens, which talk about in Revelations, that battle in the heavens, in the etheric realm, in the galactical battle, that the agreeable ones subdued the disagreeable one, and they took a little disagreeable baby and raised him amongst the agreeable. So the character of this baby, disagreeable character, was subdued because it was raised amongst the agreeable. So this baby, when it grew up, started to be very intelligent and wise and knew a lot and could understand both nature, because they had a nature of disagreeable in there, but it was raised up as an agreeable. And what happened is it started to, to excel all the other beings, because it knew something extra. It had something. He had something extra. So then, when he was in the ranks teaching, and he became one of the highest members of that order, even amongst the sons of the green light. He became very high in that order because he had both, he knew both nature. But when the son of the green light, when the green light, when the Hydra wanted to bring forth this other being that he would say will have the nature of both, the other one got jealous because he would say, well, you created me out of smokeless fire, but I learned both ways, and I've been teaching all of the Galactical Confederation. I was teaching them when I say, well, you can say angels, but the Galactical Confederation. I was teaching. Now you're bringing in somebody else to teach you because Echidra said, the Michael said, you are bright and intelligent, whatever, but you're hot-headed. I'm building. I am bringing forth a will, another being that has a balancement, like equilibrium, a balance of both nature, and he will teach you all. So you know what the other being did? Wage war, and that's the war it talks about Revelation. That after he lost the war, they cast him out, and he took 1/3, 200 of the higher the hierarchy. He took 200 of them and a lot of other 1/3 of all of those Galactical Confederation beings. He took them and brought them in onto Earth, and Earth became a prison for them. They started incarnated into different areas on this newly formed Earth, this water Earth, and started incarnating into when the land started rising up, Ganawa, the big landmass, they started civilization, and those angels created what they call the city of Nod, where it speaks about in the scriptures, Cain and Abel. Cain went into that city of Nod, and there was a city, and there were people there. Those were those fallen angels. So anyway, there were angels all over what they call these beings, from galactical beings all over the Earth. Earth was just like a station for them to travel and come here, incarnated into the mixed in with the beings that were created of the Earth, the melanated beings created on the earth, from the Earth, from the caverns of the Earth, and came up to the surface. It goes so deep, man. It's in the Suhuf. It's in the Suhuf. It's a very deep, the conversation, man. I mean, when I read that, and I started to hear some of them teachings, I was like, wow, this is like putting pieces together. This is putting the missing pieces. When you got a board and you have missing pieces, you can't really figure out the puzzle. But then when you get those pieces, you start putting them and start fitting together. You know what I'm saying? So that's what they took out of the scriptures, but it's hidden into different other doctrine. And one of them is called the Suhuf, which is bits and pieces of the original Suhuf. It's in a pamphlet, in the form of a book, and that's what Muslims adhere to. They read 5 books. They read the Suhuf, the Torah, the Injil, the Zabur, and the Quran. There's 5 books that they read. In the Bible, they said there's 2 books, but actually there's 3 books, and there are many books in the Bible. But they broke it down to 2 books, and then the one big book called Biblos, book, 2 books, Old Testament and New Testament. But then they leave out the Middle Testament, the middle one, which is the what? Psalms. Psalms is another book. Zabur is another book that was written. It's written different than the Old Testament and the Old Testament and New Testament. But anyway, in that story, in that narrative, the will was created. It was all a blue. So it was all in the etheric realm, and that is the blueprint. That's the blueprint. And then from there, because of frequency and vibrations, and then the coming the descending of these dimension, then that's when you get Earth and you get the beings and life on Earth. But it all starts from where? It all starts from the etheric realm, a ball of ether, which is the sun, is what feed it. Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry. I gotta put on some light here. Well, I'm in the dark. But anyway, um, so yeah, those beings were able to bring a descend down to what we have today. And if you look at all these different cultures, it speaks similar, similar to that story. But being that we're dealing with the Bible, that story it's about that particular area. Those that demographic area, that geographic area. That's what it speaks about. And those stories is about those Anunnakis that came down and they were cast down to mine gold. They came down to mine gold. And there was a battle that also because of the gold, there was also a battle that was fought because the ones that were working here, it speaks about the ones that were working and mining that gold. Because remember, in the scripture it says, and the gold in that land was good. So they were mining that gold. If they know that it's good, it's because they know what bad gold is, good gold is, and what gold is. You have to mine gold. So right there it's telling you there was a mining going on. But then what happened was is that a lot of the Anunnakis, they didn't want to mine anymore. They started revolting. And then that's when they came up with the idea to use the Lulu Amulu, the Homo erectus, and let them mine the gold. But in order for them to mine, to control them, and to they had to take them from a different environment, put them into that environment to control them. They had to genetically mutate their descendants. Their genetics. Genetically mutate the genetics. And that's where you get that story from, and from Mozambique, and from that part of Nuba or Africa, Nuba, in Mozambique, and those areas. Talk about the mining, and you see in South Africa and in some of those countries, you know, the mining that was done of gold in Ethiopia, the gold. And when they got these slaves, but when they started mixing in with the slaves started to get smarter and smarter and smarter, and you created all these different groups, ethnic groups. Okay, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I gotta end this now, but I'll be back for more. That is fucking stupid.